How much health do they have on this Malamar? Is it enough for them to worry about being fast attack pressure now? I think they're in a good spot. Oh, we get to it. Yo, let's go. 5-0 and 4-1 with the Spiritomb. What is going on? For those tuning in right now, welcome in. And for those checking out my YouTube video, welcome to the YouTube video. Today, I am going to do an updated Might and Mastery Great League tier list. And this is the post-patch tier list. I explained this in my previous video, if you haven't seen it. Essentially, my previous tier list was based on the pre-patch. We didn't know all the entry values based on predictions. Also, none of us got to play the newly buffed Pokemon or nerf Pokemon. So, sometimes playing it can explain more of how strong it could be or how weak it could be. One really great example of this is Carbink, right? Carbink always ranked really high in the PV Poke rankings and always seems to fall short. It never really looks like it. I think there's like 1 or 2 seasons where like it actually was good, but for the most part, Carbink is like pretty underwhelming. But the rankings always make it look good. So I'm going to take a look at the tier list I made right here and make some adjustments. I also added a couple Pokemon that I left off last time, like Ariados, Typhlosion, and then a couple of these were suggested by other people when I posted on X on my tier list, and they were like, oh, what about those things? And some of it I think it's worth mentioning. Others, maybe they just want to know my thoughts, and I shall share them. Starting from the very top, Shadow Drapion feels pretty strong still, so I'll leave it there for now. Galarian Corsola, I think it's good. I just do think that there's a decent amount of dark types and things to like make it kind of harder to use, but I still think it's pretty good. I'm going to leave it here for now, and I'll just move other things on top of it potentially. Azumarill, I don't know. I don't know if it's just like Azumarill's lost some of its hype, people trying the new stuff, or it's actually not as good right now in this meta. I still think it's a really strong pick. I don't know if I put it at number 3 overall though. Lapras though is pretty strong, honestly. Lapras I like a lot. It just seems like it has a lot of play into everything. I'm actually going to bump it above Drapion for now. Like most of the counter users and fighters or Cry Chop users take super effective damage from Lapras. It has such good coverage, and it's sometimes able to muscle through matchups it shouldn't, you know, in my opinion. Like, it beats Dugong when Dugong has straight drill run and has neutral charge attack, whereas Lapras doesn't, you know? So it's just, it's really, really strong in my opinion. Diggersby, I think, is like solid. I haven't seen much of it, and I wonder if it's partially because of all the Lapras users, all these Dynamic Punch users, stuff like that. So I'll leave it here for now, but I think it might actually even drop a little bit in usage. For Alligator, kind of similar in the sense that it's strong, but I think it's like getting outbulked by Lapras. Blastoise seems actually pretty reliable now too, and like, you know, Blastoise is pretty bulky, so those Hydrokins versus Hydro Cannon is some interesting action that could go on. Let me actually simulate that real quick, just so I can see, because I don't think I did that last stream. If I did, I forgot what I did. But let's assume it's like a rank 1 Shadow Blastoise versus a rank 1 non-Shadow, or rank 1 Shadow for Alligator, non-Shadow Blastoise. Let's see how this does. Obviously, if you land a Skull Bash, is good, right? So you only win the 2 shields, but the Blastoise wins the 0s, obviously, with the Skull Bash, and then you win the 1s with a Bait and Skull Bash. I don't think you win the 1s if you go straight Skull Bash, but I could be wrong. Yeah, you don't win that. So you do have to land a Bait, but you have the option, whereas for Alligator, for the most part, it's throwing straight Hydro Cannon. Very few run Crunch these days, for obvious reasons. Let me take a look at the Shadow Blastoise as a comparison. Yeah, Shadow Blastoise also wins the 0s and 1s. So, honestly, I think Blastoise has a lot of merit because it has that super effective damage for Lapras as well, and there's not a lot of fighters right now. So, I do think for Alligator is still solid, but maybe not as strong. I think Mandibuzz has a pretty strong utility, honestly. It's like, it's really bulky. I don't think a lot of people have been using it a ton, but again, I think part of it's because there's so many like rollout, like Blastoise rollout makes it kind of annoying. But it is a really strong check, reliable check to Grumpig, which I gotta say is also pretty disgusting. Grumpig, ooh, it's hard to say. I really like Grumpig though. I think it's really, really solid in this meta. Is it better than Drapion? That's the question. It feels really good though, right? Ghost fighting coverage is, I think you hit everything but at least super effective or neutral. I don't know if anything resisted off the top of my head, but at least nothing meta. I do think Malamar has a lot of utility right now too. And I'd almost put it here for now. I might readjust this, but I think it's really strong, right? Because that's play into all these things. Mana Buzz not so much, which is why I think Mana Buzz is actually really solid. It could do a lot of damage to Lapras, which I think is really common. It beats Grumpig, right? Which is good because that's the other primary Sidewave user outside of Lapras. And it has play into Drapion. I think it's actually really safe and solid right now. Jumpluff is an interesting one. I think there's a lot of things that beat Jumpluff right now. Drapion, this thing has play into it. Mana Buzz. Grumpig's not terrible into it, you know. I actually might move Jumpluff down to the A tier for now. I don't think it's as reliable. Blastoise has play into it with the rollout. Claydol was a really disappointing one in my opinion. I think it's good, but it's way harder to use than I thought it would be. I tried it myself, right? Problem is, look at all this stuff. It loses here. It can win here, but it's going to be brought pretty low. Obviously, it has a lot of coverage moves. This is not great either, right? Grumpy's just going straight Shadow Ball. You lose here. You lose here. You lose here. You lose to a high rank Azumarill as well. I think you lose to Digger Speed. It's probably close, depending on debuffs. And then you lose here. Like, obviously, these are just S tier picks, but, like, the Claydol I thought was going to be much better, and it's been a lot more underwhelming. And I think it's mainly not because it's not good, but just that there are the other things that are prominent meta beat it. And I think that's the bigger issue right there. So, personally, I'm going to bump it down to here for now. Jump off right here, I think is okay. Weezing's actually pretty nuts, I gotta say. I actually think it's fairly strong. I don't think it's like top meta, but I think it's actually really good. I'd actually put it up ahead of Jumpluff for now. I think it's actually really solid. Claydol I'm not actually really sold on. Alolan Sandslash I haven't really seen much of, so I'll leave it here. Primeape as well. It's just like Primeape and Annihilate. You don't really see much of it at all at this point. So yeah, I'd actually bump Clodsire above these. Clodsire has a more unique place, I think, in the meta, but Clodsire's a hard one too. I'll put it here. I actually think it's a little bit better. Dusclops is an interesting one too, but the thing is, it's just like, how often do you run this over other ghost types? So I think that's my main concern, but I think I would put it ahead of these for now. Claydol to B? Possibly. Claydol may drop. Claydol really may drop. Wigglytuff, though, really solid, in my opinion. I think it's like a really solid check to a lot of these fairy types and stuff. I'll put it here. I actually think it is really strong in this meta. I mean, Mana Buzz loses to it, Malamar. You have a lot of play into all these things, right? So, you beat Corsola as well. Yeah. Sableye, I actually think is really strong right now, too. It has a lot of play. It beats Grumpig. It feels really safe. That Dazzling Loom coverage is quite nice, actually. I'm actually going to put it maybe here. I feel like it's even better than Corsola right now. Corsola obviously is really strong. But, like, have you safe swapped a Shadow Sableye and they come in Azumarill? That is not a fun matchup for the Azumarill. I'm having a great time with Sableye. They never shield the first move. You land the Dazzling Gleam. Then you go straight foul play. You outpace him. You flip switch. You have energy. You pace super fast. Like, it's actually really solid in this meta. I played a little bit with it in GBL. Obviously, like, this shuts it down pretty hard. But, like, otherwise, like, there's not too much that shuts it down in this current meta, too. So, personally, big fan. Big fan. Talonflame is okay, I think. It's got unique utility, but I'm just going to move it up a bit. I think Credilli actually is quite strong. Credilli, I might actually even move up to the S tier. It feels actually pretty safe right now in this current meta, too. I honestly don't even like how this thing looks. I might bump it down even more. Yeah. Jellicent, I have seen literally nothing of. I think it's because there's other ghost types and dark types. It's just way too hard to use, I think. So I'm actually going to move it into the Fringe for now. Cresselia, definitely Fringe for now as well. Toxapex, I've seen a few. This is also kind of a weird one. There's not enough Azumarill for it to be useful, in my opinion. So I'll put it down here as well. Togetic, definitely not super common either, so I'll bump this down for now. Blastoise, I actually think is pretty solid. I actually will probably consider Blastoise honestly up here. Marowak, I actually think is a better Mud Slapper than Claydol. I'm trying to think why. I think it's because you don't take super effective damage from dark types. So I actually think that this thing has a little bit more play than people give it credit for. It's still kind of hard to use, but you resist the rollout damage at least, and it's not bad into a lot of these things. It's just not really good. But I think it's from a Mud Slapper standpoint, I think it's better than Claydol. Speaking of Mud Slappers, I actually think Gastrodon's maybe even better, because Gastrodon at least resists it takes neutral from the water damage, right? And it's a little bit bulkier. I think Marowak's utility is not as strong in a Lapras and Blastoise meta. But because Blastoise is not as frail as Frogger, so you can't just like farm it down with 2 shields, right? Serperior, I actually think Serperior is pretty solid. I've seen it a decent amount, and I actually think it's pretty strong in this meta right now. I'm actually gonna bump it to like here. It has a lot of play into a lot of these things. Obviously, this is bad, but there's like a little bit less jump off these days, and maybe less fire because of all these water types. Superior actually feels pretty strong, in my opinion. It has play into Credilli too, you know? So I actually think it's actually pretty solid. In a way, you could even argue it might be better than Credilli, but yeah, this one's pretty good. I'll keep it here for now, but I think you could swap place with Credilli even. Quagsire has been super underwhelming. I haven't seen anything of it. So let's move down here. Morpeko, I think, is actually quite good. Morpeko, I think, is actually very, very good in this meta. It's hard to use, but it's really solid, I think. I've seen more of this than like a Azumarill, honestly. So I'm going to bump that up for now. Metacham, it's okay. There's a lot of Ghost Dark users. I'll move it up here for now. Universumfus, not so much. Let me see if I could pull up anything, promote anything, I guess. Emolga's good. I actually like Emolga a lot. It's hard to use, but I think it's okay. I put it maybe here. I actually think Emolga's pretty solid. Let me play some of this stuff, because Spiritomb I think is quite underrated. Yo, this thing actually kind of a sleeper good pick. I really think it's actually quite good. I'm a little hesitant. I don't know how good it is, honestly, because I've only been using it in GBL, but it feels really strong. It actually feels really strong. I might just put it up here for now. It's super funky, and like, why would you use this over Sableye? But it actually feels pretty good. The question is, do you ever use it over Sableye? That's a different story, I guess. But I actually like it a lot. I think it's actually quite nice. The Thunderfang Steelix Lusa Lapras. Oh, Thunderfang Steelix is a good one. That's a good question. I think it depends on what moves you're throwing, but if you're going straight Psyshock, maybe not in 2 shields. Definitely like in other shielding situations, probably. Alright, let's assume they're like rank 1s of both, right? To make things simpler. So non-Shadow Lapras, of course. You win the 2 shields. Yeah, as expected. That's non-Shadow. If I go Shadow, you win the 1s and 2s. Again, with Shadow. Yeah, so I do think Steelix is quite nice, though. I actually think Steelix is really, really strong in this meta as well. I might even move to meta right now. Yeah, I think it's quite nice. Honestly, I've seen more of that than even Diggersby. Diggersby, I almost want to bump down. Actually, I might actually bump this down a bit. It just doesn't feel as like reliable as it used to. For Alligator as well, I think I might bump down a bit. It's good, but it's just like it's hard to run that and Lapras, or like that and Blastoise, right? And I think a lot of people are opting for Blastoise for good reason. I think let's go here for now. Maybe let's go there. Corsa too. I don't know. It doesn't feel as meta as it was. I think it's like kind of harder to use now. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just kind of hard to use. I honestly think that this... I don't know, Clotsire actually... I mean, it's ranked really high, right? What's the reason why it's ranked high again? It's ranked number 2 overall. Beast Wiggly, Primeape, Drapion. Okay, I mean, Drapion's you kind of need to land Earthquake. I'd rather be a Drapion there. Azumarill for Alligator. Loses Diggersby, Jellicent, Lapras. Lucent Lapras not ideal, and Lucent Manimo's not great. But I think it's actually... I think this thing is actually pretty strong. It's hard to say if this is actually weaker than Spiritomb. I feel like that's kind of giving Spiritomb a little too much credit. Charger Bug also feels really strong right now, because there's a lot of things that take super effective on bug damage, And Ariados is out of the picture, so you're not really getting outpaced by other bug types, I gotta say. So I actually think Charger Bug is quite strong. I'd even put it above this stuff right now. Godsword, I think, is actually quite strong right now. This is an interesting one. Godsword is... It's so strong into these things, right? You could beat this, you could beat this, you beat this, you beat this for the most part. You beat this unless you're running Air Slash, and even then it's not that bad. You beat this, you beat the Credilli, you beat the Blastoise, you beat the Serperior, you beat this as well. You only lose to Azumarill in this S tier. Why is this thing not better? Like, it's crazy good, I think. It's just a little less flexible if you run into fairy types, but how many fairy types are there realistically in this meta? I think it's really solid, especially if you run Sludge Bomb, Brutal Swing. It's actually like really strong. I honestly would even bump it up to here, maybe. Yeah, it has a little more play into Azumarill than Malamar does, right? I don't know, Malamar feels really strong too. Malamar's a little flexible. Let's keep Malamar ahead of it for now. But I think this is actually... No, let me move it up, actually. I think Gutsword. I've been, like, steamrolled by so many Gutswords lately. It's crazy what it beats. Oh, this Fortress actually is really strong, too, in my opinion. I think Fortress could be definitely meta. I don't know how meta, but Fortress actually feels pretty strong. I'm going to put it here. It feels a little more reliable than Molga. Spiritomb is an interesting one. I think Spiritomb could maybe go up or down. But I think Fortress is actually... I've played into a couple... I mean, I played into like 3 in my last set of 5, I think, on stream. So, I think Glisspot is okay. It's not bad. It's just kind of more on the frail side. But I do think it's a little better than some of these other things. I'll put it here for now. Alolan Sandslash is like... kind of non-existent because it's Powder Snow. It's just like you just take too much super effect damage. I'm going to bump this down. And for the fighters, like... I don't love them. I'm going to keep them at A for now, but I don't really like that the fighters are like... They're hard to use. They're really hard to use, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love it. Some people like to think... Said that Dusknoir is like not as bad. Put it at Fringe for now. Just keep it around here. Okay, let's dive through on the rest of this. So A tier, I feel pretty good about this so far. Leading up to this... These are good. This Corsola, I don't even think is... I don't know. I might even put Diggersby ahead of it. Froggator, I might put this ahead of it too, even. Because I think this has a little bit more play. I actually think Marowak's better than Diggersby. Diggersby's hard to use with all these Dynamic Punch users. I think that's the problem with it. I think that's the biggest problem with Diggersby, and that's why it makes it hard. I think Corsola might probably be better than it, just because of that alone. These as well. I don't know if it's worse than Glisspot, though. Glisspot's not, like, bad. It's just not... I don't love it. But, okay. Let's take a look at the other stuff. So, I think Togetic could be okay-ish. Dusknoir as well. It's not great, but it's not terrible. These other things on the list are kind of questionable. The more I play the meta, it just doesn't feel as good as I thought it would. Some of these things, I just legitimately have not even seen. You know, I've never seen a single appearance from it lately. So there's that. Do you think Skelders will be better after tomorrow? It could be. It potentially could be. At the moment in time, I don't think it's good. Yeah, obviously I'm making this tier list right before the community day. It's live in my area at least. But I there's too much waters, in my opinion. It's too much waters. It's using Incinerate, so it's not even a Ghost Fast stack. So like this thing's getting... You're doing neutral damage to each other, but this thing gets a Shadow Ball and you're just like done for, right? Guzzler's like pretty good into it, you know? Like there's just a lot of things that like Dark... Anything that's weak to Dark is kind of in trouble right now, I feel like. To a degree. But yeah, the rest of this is kind of like a hodgepodge of stuff, honestly. So I think Metacham deserves to be up a little bit. I've seen a few of them. Nothing crazy, but they're not terrible, I guess. This thing's taking super effective from damage from all the Sidewave users. Also makes it really hard to use, in my opinion. Stunfisk is okay-ish in the sense that it got like Discharge is cheaper now, but it's not amazing either. I mean, realistically, how often am I seeing any of these other things? Personally, very little of it. Umbreon also is not as good as I thought it was going to be because they reduced the damage efficiency on foul play, but it's spammier. But the thing is, like, Umbreon's so bulky already, you don't really want to lose damage efficiency because you don't do a lot of damage anyway. Spamming a move that doesn't do much damage is not really worthwhile for a bulky Pokemon. You rather throw moves a little bit less consistently, but it has more impact, right? So, like, even on PvPoke, I think it recommends Dark Pulse, and I think that's for good reason. It's just hard to see. Oh, Fur, I do think is actually okay. I think Fur, it could be good. It's just, like, hard to run to some of these things, but I think Fur actually has a lot of utility here. So, honestly, I think Fur is probably better than a lot of these things. I'll put it here for now. I actually don't think Fur is that bad. Might even be better than this. Because this typing's more unique. It has dark and it's normal type. But it's dark coverage, grass coverage, swift. It's actually not terrible. I actually think Fur is a little bit underrated. But I faced a few of them and it feels pretty strong, I'd say. This stuff is just like weird, you know? Like Jellicent got buffed, but like it's just so hard to use. Like, yes, it's buffed. Yes, it's like decently high in the rankings, but that doesn't make it good in this meta. If you can't use it, it doesn't make it good. It's like the story of Carbink's life. You can't, it's good against the vast majority of things in Great League, but against the meta, it struggles and it gets outpaced. And so because of that, it's almost useless, even though the rankings make it so good. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other stuff though. Quagsire, it could be okay, I guess. I don't know. I think it's Stone Edge for the Lapras at least. Swampert has been completely, utterly disappointing, so we don't have to talk about that one too much. Skelders might be okay. I honestly will bump Skelders here for now. With the, let's just assume the new move it gets is like decent too. I don't know, it just has some coverage at least. But it's more unique too in its coverage and has the fire damage, has the fairy damage for the dark types, so it could cover itself a little bit, but it's just not like amazing. Abomasnow is like non-existent, so I don't know. It looks okay into the meta, but I think it's kind of hard to use. Anything that's weak to fighting right now is hard to use because so much things have fighting coverage and Dynamic Punch got buffed, right? Fighting coverage. Well, I guess those are the main two, but those two are like pretty prominent in this meta, I'd say. Dusknoir, fighting coverage, right? So again, these things make it a little bit harder to run anything that's weak to fighting. Like with the fighters out of the picture, surprisingly, the things that are weak to fighting are even harder to run somehow. Kind of wild, but Dewgong's like really like near impossible to use because it's like it's getting replaced by Lapras. Why would you ever run that over Dewgong at this point, right? I think that's my personal take on that situation though. Galarian Moltres can be interesting because it has like the tools to beat a lot of the meta things, but it's just you just run Mana Buzz usually. I feel like it's just bulkier and stuff, but that's probably the main reason I would go for that. Drifloon's still okay, I guess. I don't know. Put it here. Linoone is actually not good, I feel like, because it didn't actually get Trailblaze. It's not bad, it's just let's put it there for now. Miltank's okay. I've seen a few of them. Honestly, it's probably like better than some of this other stuff. That's hard to say. I'll put it here. These things are so interchangeable in my opinion. This could be Pangoro is interesting. It has some interesting play into a lot of things, so I don't hate it. I just don't love it. I'll put it actually above these things because I feel like it has a little bit more play. It's also hard to get, so there's that. All these things are kind of a hodgepodge of stuff that I'm just not really even sure like who should take priority because they're just like, I'll put Umbreon up a little bit because that's more play into these psychics at least. Bombsnow's okay. Carbink again is just like, it's not great. It's not bad. It's just not good. And Corviknight as well. Probably a little bit more meta than these things, but these are, I have literally not even seen a Dunsparce. I think Greninja actually could be okay because again, things that are weak to dark types are anything that has dark damage could be quite solid right now. Yeah. Everything else here is just like such a weird hodgepodge of stuff that I don't even know like what to make of it. Dunsparce is like quite irrelevant right now, but Frigibags, these things are all just like not great. I'm actually gonna move this to the bad category for now. I don't know. These aren't like good. They're just not. They're not. Honestly, Clefable might actually be better than a lot of these things because it at least has some type of coverage. This is actually just bad. I don't even know why I have that here anymore. Venusaur actually could have some interesting utility. It's just not as good as a lot of the other stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if Venusaur like kind of do okay in some situations. It's just there's just better grass types, I feel like. I'll put it here. And the rest of this Togedemaru is just bad. I don't know why I even had that here. Swallow is super fringe at best. Togekiss is just bad. Dude, I haven't seen one of these. What is Dash Buns? I have not seen a single one of these. I don't even know like how good this really could be, realistically. That's just bad, I think, right now. Walreign's like it's got good coverage, I guess. So I should put a little respect on it, but not amazing. Yeah, this thing's just like kind of. These things are just like I don't know. It's like a hodgepodge of weird stuff. Maybe you could justify this. I don't know. Maybe justify it like this. I mean, anything with fairy coverage could be solid, so I don't want to like count that completely out of the picture. But I think like anything like this stuff is just not as good as it used to be, unfortunately. Into this meta, right? There's just better things. It's just these things are super fringe, I feel like. Lanoon honestly might be okay, but let's do this. Dewgong's not bad. It's just like there's no reason to ever run it with Lapras around. I think that's the problem I have with it. It never got nerfed. It's just not as good, you know. Honestly, I do think it's better than some of these other things that we've barely seen. So Roserade actually might be a little bit better than some of these things. So, but it's just so frail. It's so frail. It's hard to play. It's really hard to play, honestly. I'll put it here, I guess, but it is not easy to play. Actually, I don't even like it there. I think Roserade is maybe if you're lucky you can make it work, but it's not great. Bastion, honestly, I lost to the other day. So Bastion honestly might be a little bit better than a lot of these other things in GBL particularly. I'll move it here. It's like having lost it, I'm just like, dude, it sucks, but it's actually not like as bad as one would expect. I might even put Bombardier right here too. It has a little bit of more utility than I imagined. And the Florges, honestly, anything with fairy coverage is actually not terrible, all things considered. It's just not. There's just better fairies, but it's again, it could be. Yeah, these things are like honestly not the worst to have, but I think all fairies have a lot of play because of how much this stuff. Okay, I was also quite mistaken on Ribombay. I thought that thing was a little cup Pokemon, and no one corrected me because I don't think anyone else realized it too. How do you even spell that thing? What did it learn? It learned Charm. Ribombay learned Charm. And it's ranked not the best. That's Dazzling Gleam, Fairy Wind, Bug Buzz. Honestly, Dazzling Gleam got a slight buff, so it's not the worst. It's just I don't really know what it beats. It's ranked 777, 767 actually. What? Yeah, this thing's pretty bad. Okay, no, this thing is actually quite bad. Why is it so bad? Oh, wait, it's still recommended to have Fairy Wind. That's why. Okay, but Fairy Wind's probably better for it. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad, though. I actually feel like it still deserves hot garbage. Just one spot above in hot garbage. So I'll move it up to here. I'm not even going to stress too much about the bad category because whether I got some of this order wrong, dude, just don't run these. Just don't run them to begin with. A few recommendations from other people, though, that I had was Pachirisu at 112. That's not too bad. It has some play into a lot of the things. It's bulkier than a lot of these other things. I'm going to put it here. I think it's a little bit more usable than Zapdos. But not the easiest to run, but it's not too bad. Typhlosion has dropped quite a bit, all the way to 175. Shout out Typhlosion. However, I do like its coverage still. It still feels okay to me. It's just getting pushed out by some of the other things, but it still feels okay. I would put it. It's still like kind of. I think in the right position, it could still like put in quite a bit of work. So I'll put it behind this Jellicent, but there's an argument to be made that it should be a little bit higher. So yeah. Ariados fell off the map completely, and I think part of the reason is because the pacing of everything else is catching up to Ariados. Like, it can't outpace like a Sableye, right? It just throw on charge like priority, but you can't counter swap it. And there's a lot of sidewave users, right, that are going to do a lot of damage to it. And yeah, and a lot of things that used to beat like Fraugator, Superior, like they're still around, but there's just other things that could beat them, I think, instead. You lose the Lapras, you lose the Jealousy, you lose Glossar, Manabuzz, Drapion. I don't know. It's okay. I think it's maybe got a place like right here. Bastion, actually surprised has some more play. Drifloon. I think it was PvP Patrick said that I should consider Drifloon. Honestly, it's ranked 263. The non-Shadow. Shadow's 239. Now, let's take a look at what's even around that thing, because that's where it's really telling on like how viable it is. Because some of these other things that might be placed decently high might be around that area. So Typhlosion's 255, obviously non-Shadow. Drifloon's 263. Oinkologne female. Hippowdon, Grimer. I don't know. It's not great. It's Magneton is above it. Raichu. I don't doubt that PvP Patrick hit Legend with it and climbed a ton with it. Was running like an ABB Drifloon team. But I don't think it's great. You know? I don't think it's great. I will put it in Fringe meta. If you could climb with that, it's not bad. But is it good? Honestly, it's probably better than Whiscash. Actually, I'll give it that. And then Alolan Ninetales was the only other one that I didn't cover. They Love Jai mentioned it. Actually, it's not ranked too bad. 73 overall. Shadow 81 overall. That's not too bad. And like I said, anything that's a fairy type has play in this meta. What else is around that? Shadow Blast was actually 77. Whiscash Shadow's 70. What the heck? Maybe I underestimated Whiscash. I don't know. I just don't think Whiscash is like super easy to use right now. I could be mistaken there. Greninja 69. What else is below the low Ninetales? Zapdos. Lickitung, obviously. Regiseal's below it by quite a few spots. Dewgong's below it. I don't know. Dewgong's like okay. I don't think it's that bad, but I do think Alolan Ninetales actually has some play here or there. So I'm putting it behind the Bastion. It might be even better than that. I think with charm damage is something. But just what do you use the ice type damage for? There's not as much, right? You're probably using charm damage most of the time. If that's the case, you just run Wigglytuff for the typing. I'll put it here for now. I think Alolan Ninetales has an argument to be higher up, but I think that's going to be how it is. It's perfect, except Claydol is too high. Claydol might be... I don't know. I have seen more Claydol than these fighters, at least. But I don't love it either, to be fair. So, we'll see. Claydol maybe can go down a bit, but I don't like a lot of these things for starters. So I don't think that Claydol is all that. Honestly, Metacham might be okay. I'm going to bump Metacham up a bit. It might be okay. You just have to avoid like these fighters, but like there's not a lot of these fighters around. You know? It has a little bit more play. The bulk on it makes it much more playable. Morpeko has been a nice surprise for me. I ran it a little bit myself, and yeah, it's really hard to run, but it actually feels really solid. In GPL for sure. In Show 6 might be a different story. Anyway, this is going to be the tier list I have for Great League. All these things I stand by are hot garbage, including this Wilmer in particular. Anyway, this is my tier list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But thank you all for tuning into the live stream or watching the video. Hopefully this is informative and helpful in how you make your decisions. But yeah, this top stuff I see all day long, and I think it's really, really solid and really strong why those things are the way they are. Spiritomb, shout out to Arrow for recommending to me. Top notch. Same type as Sableye, slightly different moves, but it's incredibly underrated in my opinion, and I think over time people realize that. Anyway, hope you like this video. I will catch you all in the next one. But until then, have a good one. Good luck on Community Day. And peace out.